the capacity to atone for and cleanse the effect of willful sin, which is a far greater transformation than other forms of atonement, for example, the sacrifices. So this helps us to understand why the passing of Miriam, Moses' sister, the prophetess, is linked up with Para Aduma, the rite of the red heifer, unlike other sacrifices which actually bring atonement, whereas the red heifer brings purification. The Rebbe will now explain how this relates to the passing of a tzaddik. For this likewise draws down a degree of illumination that utterly transcends the world, transforming its darkness into light and bringing about atonement for the sins of the generation. It's known that Abba literally means the father, a Kabbalistic name for the sphere of Chachma, draws its sustenance from the eighth mazel. In other words, the eighth in the Torah's enumeration of the 13 attributes of divine mercy, which correspond to the 13 strands, or it says here, it translates it as tufts, of the celestial beard, the individual hairs of which are conduits for the emanation of a tenuous flow of life force. Hutikun neitzer chesed. This is the tuft of neitzer chesed that appears in the above listing. Neitzer chesed lo alafim. He guards chesed for thousands of generations. Neitzer is the same word, the same letters, Eis Ratzain. Neitzer is Eis Ratzain. V'hi Eis Ratzain hamizgala umeyer b'vchinas giloi milmayla lamata be'eis ptiras tzadikei alyin. What's Eis Ratzain means a time of divine favor. And this is the Eis Ratzain, in other words, the auspicious time that becomes revealed and radiates in a manifest way from above downward at the time of the passing of tzaddikim of stature. These tzaddikim who have passed, who serve God out of love, surrendering their soul to God during their lifetime every evening and morning when reading the Shema. Through doing this, it's pretty Kabbalistic, but the point is that through their godly service, they would initiate a spiritual arousal expressing their desire to receive a flow of divine energy, to what we're calling Abba and Ima, Chachma and Bina, during the reading of the Shema, as is known. The same applies also, not only to the way that they said Shema, but to their study of Torah, which derives from Chachma. This too results in an elevation of Mayin Nukvin toward Chachma, an arousal from below to that place, so to speak, to that realm, to that level. Thereby the Mayin Duchrin, literally the masculine waters, which thereupon flow from above, were elicited and drawn down from the tuft of Neitzer Chesed, since it is from this divine attribute that Chachma draws its sustenance, as stated above. And indeed, it is these illuminations that radiate in a manifest way at the time of the passing of tzaddikim, the illuminations that are drawn down through the self-sacrifice of tzaddikim during their lifelong recitation of the Shema and their Torah study, become revealed at the time of their passing. For as is known, all the effort of man in which his soul toiled during his lifetime, and which remains above in a hidden and obscured state. When we say man, we don't only mean man, of course, we mean even woman. This whole treatise is based upon, actually, as we mentioned, Miriam, the sister of Moses, of Moshe. So what happens when they pass? All of that work that they did, which was in a hidden and obscured state, is revealed and radiates in a manifest way from above downwards at the time of the passing. Thus, all the unseen spiritual effects of the tzaddik's reading of the Shema and his Torah study are revealed in the world below at the time of his passing. So through this illumination that now is revealed at the time of their passing, now we're getting to the point that we're trying to make about how all these lofty, all this lofty revelation, which while the tzaddik was living in the most physical sense, soul and body, wasn't such a revelation, or was a limited revelation. in this context, really it wasn't a revelation at all. Now we're saying that it becomes revealed, but not only is it revealed because there's still potential for a revelation to happen in a way where I don't appreciate the revelation. But we're saying that it's appreciated by us in this world in a physical way. And it affects salvations in the midst of the earth to atone for the sin of the generation. Even for the deliberate sins, which are of 3 impure klipos that are inferior to neiga. For klipas neiga can give rise only to accidental sins, whose atonement is secured through sacrificial offerings. So now we're coming to understand why is Miriam's passing linked up with the process of the red heifer, with the spiritual purification ritual of the red heifer, instead of the atoning ritual of sacrifices, if we're trying to talk about atonement. Because we're talking about, and the answer is because we're talking about an atonement that's much greater, because it's not only an atonement for an accidental sin, but even a deliberate one. For the mazel of Neitzer Chesed is of the Meichen Stimen of Arachan Pin, in other words, Chachma of Keser, which is the source of the task of Birurim, the refinement of the material world by extracting and uplifting the divine sparks within it. Just want to point out that the Rebbe said that we have done this Haveda and it's completed, and we're literally ready for the ultimate revelation of Mashiach. Of course, so long as the ultimate revelation hasn't yet happened, we need to constantly be increasing in our love for one another and in our study of Torah personally and spreading Torah, teaching it to others, and of course in our doing mitzvahs with more and more enthusiasm. All with joy. Right? And back to Tanya, the darkness incurred by the breaking of the vessels, which we just mentioned, is thereby converted into the light of the world of Tikkun. This light is therefore able to atone even for the deliberate sins that derive from the 3 impure klipos, which we said is a much starker sin than the ones that can arise from klipas noiga, right? It's deliberate. Actually, it would be wise to make a video specifically about this topic, because this is easier to explain than all these Kabbalistic references. To speak about, let's say, caption it something like, why do I sin by mistake? And the answer to that is because I'm grub. That's it is an English word that's somewhat related, but the point is that because my animal soul has accustomed itself to being able to satisfy its desires, and again, the animal soul's desires are not necessarily for sin, right? It's an animal. It's animalistic. It's instinctual. It's just trying to survive by eating and sleeping, etc., etc. But if I don't keep that animal in check, if I don't tame my animal, then this allows that if there's ever something that is sinful, but to me it feels like survival just because I feel like I want this right now, this is just part of my existence, then I might actually, God forbid, do that. That's how a person can come to sinning by mistake. So, and it's for those things, right, that come from my animal soul, that by bringing a sacrifice of an animal, I can effect atonement. That's an inadvertent sin. That's because my animal soul is being itself, right? So, because the passing of Miriam affected atonement, and because the passing of a righteous person, a tzaddik or a tzaddikis, affects atonement, and not just any atonement, but this level of atonement for all the people that they leave life over to, all the people that remain in this world, souls and bodies. That's why her passing is linked up with the ritual purification of the paraduma, the process of the red heifer.
You finished over there already?